In this video, I'm going to tell you my picks for the Southern Charm Readathon, which is being sponsored by book lover Amanda. Stay tuned. Hi everyone, and welcome to Book Talks with Miss Thomas. If you are new here and you like hearing about great books, usually Christian books, but sometimes not. I'll let you know, if it's not a Christian book, mostly clean books anyway. If you are interested in that and you're new here, subscribe, please. And if you are returning, thanks so much for coming back. Welcome back. All right, so Amanda at Book Lover Amanda is just fantastic and definitely one of my favorite booktubers. Great Southern girl, great Christian books she recommends. And she is sponsoring the Southern Charm Readathon. So I wanted to go ahead and give you my picks for that readathon. So Amanda has 8 prompts on her readathon, and I'm going to walk you through my pick for each prompt. And the prompts are just adorable. So the first prompt is Bless Your Heart, an emotional or heartwarming book. And I pick, you guessed it, Bless Your Heart, Ray Sutton. It's a really cute book. And if I'm not mistaken, it was recommended by Amanda. So Bless Your Heart, Ray Sutton is just a really sweet book about this girl in the South, and her mom has died. And I believe she's at her mom's funeral or wake when her husband shows up, ex-husband, shows up with his new girlfriend, this, young thing. And so it's just, here she's at her mother's funeral and she's got to deal with this ex-husband and the new girlfriend, and he's not very nice. Although, we get to know him a little better, and some people thought he might get nicer, and I never liked him. Okay, I'm sorry. I just never liked that guy. But anyway, Bless Your Heart, Ray Sutton is really more about Ray and her relationship with her mom, and her mom's friends start to include her in this weekly gathering. I think they get together and send cards to people, or somehow want to get together and bless people. It's been a while since I've read it, but I remember it, and I remember it being so dear and so heartwarming, especially because as Ray is grieving the loss of her mom, she's reflecting on all these wonderful memories of her mom. And the thing that I especially thought was beautiful in that book is she uncovers different notes that her mom left her. So as she's grieving the loss of her mom, she comes across these letters that her mom has written for her, knowing that she would discover them, after her mom has gone to be with Jesus. And it's definitely a Christian book. And it was just a very lovely, heartwarming book that I highly recommend and enjoyed immensely. Okay, the second prompt is Sweet Tea, a book with something sweet on the cover or a sweet story. And since this is Amanda's readathon, I try to recommend books that she has mentioned or she has recommended. And this is another one that Amanda recommended that I really liked. And it was called 2 Parts Sugar, 1 Part Murder. And it was just adorable. It was a fun, cozy mystery. This girl, I don't know what it is about women being cheated, I don't even usually read romance, and it wasn't a romance, except that there's that theme again of a woman being jilted by, in this case, not a husband, but a man that had promised to marry her, and he cancels the wedding, and she's humiliated. So she decides she's going to get away and go and stay where her aunt has lived and owned a bakery, and the aunt died and left her the bakery and the home and the gigantic dog. Need I say more? Oh, it was so cute. I really enjoyed that book, and if you haven't read it, you should, because it's a good one. The next prompt is Hot as Blue Blazes, a book with a hot setting. Woo! This one is not a Christian book, but I really, really recommend and loved very much The Dry by Jane Harper. I am a big Jane Harper fan, and I've read all of her books. This one is her debut novel, and it's the story of Erin Falk, who goes to, let's see, this is the first one, so it's been a while, but let me see how much I can remember. Erin Falk his best friend, or a friend of his, has apparently killed his wife and committed suicide. So it's like a homicide, suicide kind of thing. And the dad asks Aaron Falk to investigate this because something's not quite right. And so Aaron Falk is grieving the loss of his friend, but he's also looking into this alleged suicide, because maybe his friend was murdered. And Aaron Falk, if you haven't read any of the Jane Harper books, because now it's a series, there's at least 3 Aaron Falk books out now, and they're all great. But I do think The Dry is my favorite. And Aaron Falk is a forensic accountant, and so he follows the money to solve the crime kind of thing. So it's a really interesting approach to crime solving, and I loved The Dry. And the other thing about The Dry, it takes place in Australia, and there's a lot of reference to the heat in Australia and the humidity, and there's some reference to spiders too, which I don't like spiders, but it does definitely talk about the heat and the intensity of the humidity. The thing I liked best about The Dry, though, was all the kooky characters. I mean, there were a lot of kooky characters. This guy, Aaron Falk, he grew up in this town in Australia, and he was driven out because of a murder, and he was assumed to be the killer, and so the whole town turned on him. And when he came back for his friend's funeral, there were some people in the town that did not want him there, and there was just a lot of really kind of creepy characters in the book, and I like that. I like characters, so I really enjoyed The Dry by Jane Harper. Heavens to Betsy, a mystery or thriller that will shock you. So my favorite thriller mystery book, my favorite Christian mystery thriller is, bar none, Fragments of Fear by Carrie Stewart Parks. I have talked probably ad nauseum about that book. I really liked that book. It has a Hitchcock kind of flavor. It's almost like the main character is being gaslighted. She believes that someone has been murdered, and then she goes back to the crime scene and it's all cleaned up. And then the people who apparently cleaned up the crime scene saw her, and they're following her and hunting her throughout the book. And I just thought that was a really good thriller. Another one that I want to talk about, though, is We Were Liars. And that one is not a Christian book, but I do want to put it out there because the ending just shocked me. Now, that's a young adult book. It's not Christian. It's the story of these kids. They get together. They're all related. And so the sisters get together with their children at their father's beach, or is it the lake? But they get together at this vacation home, and they're really wealthy people. And the kids get together and they call themselves the Liars. We Were Liars. And it's about their summer vacations together. But I have to tell you, I don't want to say too much. The ending of that book shocked me. Young adult, I don't remember anything especially horrible or offensive. It was young adult, but it's been a while, so don't quote me on that. I think it was clean. I don't remember for sure if it was clean, but the ending, I'm a hard reader to shock, and the ending of that one really surprised me. So I do recommend We Were Liars if you are someone who reads books that aren't necessarily Christian, or not even in the ballpark of Christian. I don't think it was offensive, but I like that book. All the FIXINS, a book with multiple genres. I am going with A Reckoning at Gossamer Pond by Jamie Jo Wright. I really liked that book. There was definitely a dual timeline there. There was like the church in the center of town kind of timeline with these people that set up a tent and preach. And then there's like a modern day timeline. And there was just a lot in that book. I don't want to say too much, but I really did enjoy that one. And there was, to me, a very clear difference between the two timelines. So I did really love A Reckoning at Gossamer Pond. Right. And I do cover that in another video if you want more details, but you won't be disappointed if you get that book. Chicken and Dumplings, a book that you think will be a comfort read. Now, again, I'm not going with Christian books here. So if you're, straight up Christian reader, I'm not just fast forward. But a book that I thought would be a comfort read would be The Sentence by Louise Penny, or is it Louise? Louise Penny. And I DNF'd it. I was really disgusted with it. I didn't like that book at all. But I want to say I thought it was a comfort read because it was the story, the description said that there was this bookstore and there was a ghost haunting the bookstore. It was someone who I guess used to frequent the bookstore and then they passed on and they were haunting it. So I was expecting like a cozy mystery, women hanging out at a bookstore and this like fun-loving ghost. That's not at all what that book was. So I chose that one because the prompt specifically says a book that you think will be a comfort read. And so I say I did not find that book comforting. However, also not a Christian book, but I think it was clean. Now, it's been a while since I've read it. But I do want to say a comfortable book, a book that I really enjoyed and found comforting was Sheer Mischief. I enjoyed this book and I just loved the sisters. There were two sisters and one gets into trouble and the other one has to always bail her out. And it was just a fun book about two sisters. And there were some funny scenes in this book. But I don't think it was Christian. It wasn't, there was no heaving. I don't remember if it was entirely clean, but I definitely don't read books with heaving. So I thought this was fun. Sheer Mischief. I like the two sisters and I found that very comforting to read. So that's a comforting read that I did like and a comforting read that was not comforting and I did not like because it's a book that you think will be a comforting read. Hey y'all, listen up. A book with more than one point of view. I'm going to go with The Orphan Train. I loved The Orphan Train, and that tells the story. It's based on truth. It's based on the actual orphan train, which is a part of our history, our United States history. It's not widely known that there was an orphan train. And so the one character in the book was an immigrant from Ireland. Her parents immigrated from Ireland and died tragically in a fire. And so she is placed on the orphan train shortly after World War II. And there are pictures at the end of the book of the real orphan train and news clippings about there really was an orphan train. But this fictional character who is based on reality, she is just going from different situation to different situation. She is horribly exploited. In one situation, she is forced to work in sewing and she's so hungry. They give her like this mat to sleep on the floor and she's so hungry that I remember her getting this apple and going, I think she runs into the outdoor latrine to eat her apple because, she's so hungry and she gets an apple and that's a big treat. So she was not provided for in a way that we would like every child to be provided for. And so it was sad, but it was also beautiful because she encounters nice families too and has some positive things happen in her life. And there's also some bit of a love story in there that was very charming. And then there's the other character telling the story, and she is a teenage girl who is a foster child, and she is in this foster home with a husband and wife, but the woman is just really mean. The one thing I remember about her in particular was that the teenage girl, the foster child, wanted to be a vegetarian, and the woman was just real snotty about that and would serve meat, It was clear to the reader, to me as the reader, that she was having this foster child in her home for the government check. The man in the house was a bit nicer. So this girl that's the foster child, she ends up making friends with this older woman who is just very kind to her, and she starts getting to know her in the book. So you have different perspectives in The Orphan Train, and I liked that book. I recommend that book. Howdy Partner, a book featuring family or friendship. I have talked a lot about a book called In for a Penny, and I loved it so much. It's the first in a series. I went and got the sequel already, and I look forward to going through that whole sequel. I could just devour the books about those friends. And that is the story. In for a Penny is the beginning of the series, where these little old ladies are friends, and they have the one little old lady. She has this beautiful mansion that's going downhill. You know, it's falling apart. And so the friend comes to stay with her, and the friend is really good at do-it-yourself home improvement. And then the one little old lady that owns the house ends up in prison. And so the friend wants to get her out of prison and prove her innocence. And meanwhile, she's also fixing up the house. And that was just a lovely book about friendship. I really got a kick out of the women in that book. Oh, and then there was this woman named Martha in the prison. So the little old lady that owns the fancy house, she also makes a different kind of friend in prison named Martha. So there were different types of friendship in that book and in that series, because I read the second one in that series, and that was just really cute. I definitely love In for a Penny. So there you have it, my Southern Charm Readathon picks. I really recommend the ones, except for the sentence. I really recommend all the other ones that were discussed in this video.